People who have pretended to fall asleep. What is something interesting you've overheard? I remember way back I couldn't sleep on Christmas Eve, you know, being a little kid and all. So during this sleepless night, where I guess my parents thought I was asleep, I heard my dad say, "Where do you think we should hide the new puppy?" That was pretty much at the top of my list, so naturally I was excited that I was getting a puppy. They talked for a good 20 minutes about the puppy, saying things like how should we keep it from barking before he finds him? Before I dozed off. Next morning, I discovered that my parents knew I was awake and just decided to fuck with me. There was no goddamn puppy. I got a Gamma Boy though, so it wasn't too bad. Was spending the night at a friend's house. I'm a guy, she's a girl. Brought my friend over because we were out partying. We all slept in the same room. I was laying on the floor near my friend when I heard my friend Andrea call my name. Wanting to sleep, I ignored her not moving, to which she responded, "Okay, Andy, I think he's asleep. Come here." About 5 minutes later I hear the bed squeaking and her soft moans. One of them sneezed about 15 minutes into it, in which I responded, "Bless you." They immediately stopped. 10/10ths were due again. Weekend retreat at church camp. My buddy and another friend's girl and I ended up in a room with 2 bunk beds. We were chilling when I realized that I was the third wheel, so I powered down. First there were tests to see if I was awake, then she climbed to his top bunk, then kissing, then her moaning, then her telling him he should wash his hand. I got bored and did some fake sleep talking. They laughed and continued, but they called it a night without rounding home. She left, and I figured it was best to not give high fives till the next day. I don't know why I waited until we were at his house. Maybe she rode back with us. Still, it was my first time playing Super Nintendo, and as he handed me the controller that would introduce me to Yoshi, I asked him, "You did wash your hands, right?" He was so thrilled to get to talk to someone about it. When I attempted suicide at 13, I pretended to be asleep in my hospital bed. My parents actually believed I was, and I heard my mom say to my dad, "First, my brother, now her. What am I doing wrong?" It broke my heart, because she is a wonderful mother and always had been. We just have bad genetics when it comes to mental illness in my family. I'll never forget those words, and I'm constantly trying to prove to her the wonderful job she's done. Was in this messed up relationship with my ex-husband when I was pregnant with my second kid. We had a roommate, female, but we would all have sex with each other because we were young and free-spirited or something. Anyway, I pretended to be asleep one night because I didn't feel like having sex that night and didn't want to turn anybody down or make up an excuse. My ex-husband and the roommate got to talking in the next room. The bedroom door was open, so I could hear them pretty clearly, and she asked him why he married me anyway. His response, "I just didn't know what else to do at that point." Seemed like the next logical step and I took it. I honestly wish I hadn't done it, and I wish I was single right now living life, but now I have this fucking family, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna get out. Hit me real hard. I was less than 3 feet away as one of my best friends took a 19 years virginity. We traveled from the Bay to La to attend a rave with some girls we met at EDC a few months prior. After all the partying took place, one buddy took the older sister to his car, and my other buddy started making moves on the younger sister. I was sleeping on the floor and was petrified because I felt like if I moved, it would kill his game. So I sat through the most awkward sexual experience of my life to help him get laid. It was short and sporadic, but they both seemed to enjoy it, I think. So I think I made the right decision pretending to be asleep on the floor as they bunny humped on the bed literally 2.5 feet from me. My mom to her friend, when I was like 8, "I don't actually even like her. She's so annoying. I want to get rid of her." Naturally I burst into tears. She said she was sorry, she knew I was awake, and it was just a joke. She's got a cruel sense of humor. On my way back from a race in Colorado and my buddy got pulled over for speeding in Iowa. I was on the bench seat sprawled out trying to sleep. When we pulled over I asked what's going on. "We are getting pulled over." I promptly said, "You guys deal with that shit, I'm going to sleep." Pretended to be asleep and heard the cop go, "What the fuck's up with your buddy? Is he okay?" And give my friends a ton of shit for having me asleep in the back. GG cop didn't try and wake me though. Now that I think of it, that's not even the first time. I was a freshman in college and a couple friends rented a house in Rio and us all being underage idiots proceeded to have massive party. Cops raided it. I ran upstairs and jumped in a bed and cops barge in looking for shit. Shining the flashlight in my face. I still pretend to be asleep. They call over and are like, hey so this kid's fucked up. They laugh. Find a little weed on the other bed in the room. Proceed to let me sleep through everything. My best friend and I were at another friend's house. Other friend had a boyfriend at the time, but they were going through some shit and split up. But we were always like, oh they'll get back together. We had a pretty cool weekend of drinking, games, watching films and eating food. We had the house to ourselves, and we would fall asleep wherever. I was put up in a room with a spare bed, and next to the boyfriend, because I'm a guy and they wanted the guys together. I had been sleeping pretty rough one night, and I awoke to hear soft moaning from the bed next to me. He's just jerking off, I thought, so I just turned over and tried to sleep. Then it started again, moaning. But it wasn't him. It was a female. My distorted hearing due to drifting out of sleep heard it get louder and more raunchy. I was so freaked out. I was fully awake, and I just had to pretend to sleep and endure this nightmare. After they finished, he waddled off to the toilet after stepping on my bed naked and the girl was left there. I looked at her to realize it wasn't his ex. It was my best friend. She thought I was asleep. I thought he was fucking his ex, but I still gave her a high five for it. Back in grade school I was over at a friend's place with a couple other friends for a sleepover. We were watching Kenny vs Spenny, the episode where they see who can go around naked the longest or something. His mom comes in and thinks he watching gay porn. Naturally we pretend to be asleep while his mom reams him out and thinks he's watching gay porn in front of us. Sorry Scott, good times though. Fell asleep on a table outside at a party, woke up but remained with head on table. Cute girl I was talking to earlier begins discussing me with my friend. Then says she considered getting off with me earlier, but I kept passing out. I'm like fuck yeah let's get it on. Drunk me springs up and says well I'm sober now, then passes out again. Informed by said friend of my idiocy the following day. I had been sleeping on the couch in my CCA room in school and I heard my name just as I woke up, so I stayed put to eavesdrop. A couple of mates were talking about me in a positive light and saying nice things about me without knowing I was awake. It was really nice to hear it, especially since I was a relatively low point at that time. Every time I think about this I feel good, even though it's been a half dozen years or so, and it always reminds me to uphold those good characteristics. I wasn't pretending. I had been asleep for about 30 minutes while my boyfriend and his buddy were smoking some weed. I'm not really sure what woke me up, but I kind of became conscious for a few moments, but didn't really move or anything, so I was just trying to go back to sleep. Anyway, my boyfriend, who had been rubbing my back as I slept, turned to his buddy and said, hey man, you see this girl right here? I'm gonna marry her one day. She's gonna be my wife. And his buddy just says, yeah dude, I know. And I'll be standing right there with you when it happens. It was so sweet, and it was so hard to not just tear up or smile or anything. But when things are tough I sure do think of that night. Interesting because it was my friends trying to decide what food places they wanted to eat at while I was napping. We went out for breakfast. I went to crash for a couple of hours while they hung out in the living room. All I heard them talk about was which place they'd want to eat at, then the best thing, let's wait until she's up. She's probably hungry again, made me smile because they were open enough to not leave me in be. They understood my love for eating. Needless to say within 5 minutes I walked in pretending I'd just woken up. Made an account just for this. New Year's Eve 6 to 7 years ago. I was at a small house party, and after everyone was going to bed, me and my bro slept in the living room by ourselves. I slept on the couch and my bro put a blanket on the floor for himself. I was only laying down, maybe 5 minutes, when the girl he was flirting with all night came to lay with him. They then proceeded to start fucking right next to me, pretty loudly. Then she says, wait, is he asleep? Then I continue faking as he flashes his phone light on my face and says yes. So they fucked twice, while I was stuck listening to my brother talk dirty and her moaning and fucking noises for a few hours. Probably not a few hours, but it felt like that because I had to piss like crazy the whole time and was too embarrassed to get up. Next year they threw the party again, and my bro told me to come with him, and I told him I heard everything last time, and he said, oh, I knew you were awake, but I didn't give a fuck. Two of my good friends, a guy and a girl, and I were all sleeping in a waterbed after a hard night of drinking. Now everyone knew that she was head over heels for him, but he always told me that he didn't think of her like that. So I didn't think it was a big deal all passing out in same bed. I woke up, waterbed remind you, to those two making out, and some possible heavy petting I guess. I was stuck. Wake up and ruin something, or pretend to sleep, and hope it didn't escalate. I chose the latter. Didn't escalate. I was the best man at their wedding, and now they have 2 children. Heard the maid, not what it seems. Where I'm from, people from middle class have maids too. Handle something that sounded like rough paper. I suspected it was money, but I didn't think anything about it. She seemed honest. Fast forward 6 months, my father suspects someone is taking money out of his pocket. He put up his phone against some books one day whilst we were downstairs breaking fast. He caught the bitch red-handed. I wanted her ass fired and sued the shit out of. Then we followed the green, or rather, purple, paper road and discovered she was funneling the money to a gangbanger who was in the can for killing his uncle. My pops called one of the guys in the force to look into it further. What were our options? He came over backed by 2 cops and told her to hand over the keys. We had the locks changed anyway. Get the fuck out and never look back. Obviously, pressing charges was not the smartest thing to do. We spent the next year looking over our shoulders. Later we discovered she probably took about $1,000 in dollars over the years, at least. Just in bills she took from me and my old man. I swear to fucking goodness, I see her, I'll snap. April Fool's Day at my buddy's house. We were in our early 20s, but my buddy still lived with his dad. He was the youngest of 3 sons, and his dad was getting up there in age. He was an old style drinking, unfiltered Lucky Strike smoking, weed stealing old man. Well, his son did the old stare and wrap the toilet prank. Waited till after the old man went to bed. Anyone who had ever stayed the night there had walked in on his dad's middle of the night shits. The old fucker never locked the door. You'd just wander in after a few beers and there is this shriveled old raisin of a man smoking on the toilet and letting loose some of the most airy, unhealthy sounding shits ever. So we are in the living room when we hear him go to take his midnight shit. We are watching TV, but as soon as we heard him moving we all pretended to sleep. About a minute later we hear a loud, "Oh what the fuck?" come from the bathroom. We are all, 4 of us guys, are trying our best not to laugh. A couple of minutes go by and his dad pops his head around the corner, sees us sleeping, and just goes back to bed, calling us a bunch of limp dicks. He wasn't in bed for more than 5 minutes before we are all in tears laughing. Later he would describe the experience to us. He sat down and started to piss and felt his balls get warm. He thought it was weird and it didn't register with him for a minute. He finished his smoke, cleaned up and just went back to bed. He knew we were up, but he also knew what day it was. During a short road trip with people I kind of liked, but didn't consider close friends, I slept and woke up, but I left my eyes closed to listen to music in case I'd be able to fall asleep again. One of the girls in the car said, "She looks like an angel when she sleeps." This was the single most touching thing I have ever heard about myself. I don't consider myself a beautiful woman. Pretty, funny, intelligent, but not beautiful, so hearing this made my day. Hell, it made my decade. I didn't say anything, I just reveled in the moment and never forgot that wonderful thing that was said about me.